Someone cares. When disappointments come and you're feeling blue, just know someone cares.
Thank you all so very much for tuning in to day 3 on 100 Days of Favor. I have a special guest for you. He's a personal and great friend of mine, Dr. Michael Michelson, who teaches at Southern Nazarene University. He's an Old Testament theologian and scholar. And I'm going to move out the way and let the professional do what he does best. Psalm 3.
So Psalm 3 is a very important psalm in the book of Psalms. Psalm 1 and 2 actually serve as an introduction to what happens in the rest of the book of Psalms. And Psalm 3 and Psalm 4 have a special position in the Psalms. Psalm 3 is often called a morning psalm, and Psalm 3 an evening psalm. So if you look at the end of Psalm 4, you'll see that it talks about what happens in the evening. And right here in the middle of Psalm 3 at verse 6, it says, I lay down and slept, but I awoke, for the Lord sustained me. So Psalm 3 is about a psalm of waking up. It's about a psalm of God's sustenance, about a psalm of God's goodness in the life. Now, it's more than that, though. It's not just sort of a general sustenance and a general sense of God's generic provision. In Psalm 3, we read about probably the greatest time of David's calamity in his life. And I don't know about you, but we all face some kind of calamity. But think back on the greatest time of calamity, the worst situation that's ever happened. Why would the book of Psalms, a book that's about praise, why would the book of Psalms start with the greatest calamity? Perhaps because it's out of the greatest calamity that the best praise can be oriented toward God. So Psalm 3 starts as a morning psalm. It's an invitation for us to start our mornings every single day with praise to God. And in the psalm itself, it's the situation of David's great calamity when his son and a group of people rose up against him. And as they came up against him, we read at the very beginning of the psalm that this is a psalm from when David fled from his son Absalom. But it says, Lord, how many are my enemies, those that rise up against me? So David is crying out. It's his complaint. It's his sadness. And again, I want you to think about this at the start of the book of Psalms. Why start with complaint? Why start with sadness? Except that the book of Psalms, both here and through the book of Psalms, is going to have lots of complaints. And those complaints are always places where God's best activity can take place. So it says, Lord, how many are my enemies? They've risen up against me. Many are those who say that there is no help for him in God. So the enemies of David, and sometimes the enemies in our life, are saying there's no help. There's no help for this guy. There's no help for this gal. There's no help for this person. Not even God could help this person. But the wonderful thing in Psalm 3 is that God does provide. In Psalm 3, we read that God is a shield. And God's honor and glory comes to the protection and salvation of David. So David goes on and he says, but you are a shield for me, my glory, the lifter of my head. So not only does God raise him up to wake him up, as the psalm will go on to say, but God lifts him up. God is the shield and the protection. I cried to the Lord with my voice, and God heard me. If you're in a time of trial, if you're in a point of difficulty in your life, there's nothing you want more than for God to hear you. If it might feel like you're all alone out in the wilderness and there's no one there. It might feel like you're in the waters and you're drowning and there's nothing to help you. But when you cry out to the Lord provides the safety net. The Lord comes in for the rescue. So that the psalmist again says, I lay down and slept, I awoke, for the Lord sustained me. I will not be afraid of 10,000 people that have set themselves against me. Arise, Lord, save me, for you have struck down my enemy. The psalm ends with this line, salvation belongs to the Lord. Your blessing is on your people. Salvation that is needed for the help against enemies doesn't come from our own might and our own power. It comes from the Lord. There's the saying about boats out on the water. And boats out on the water can float on the largest bodies of water. It doesn't matter how large that body of water is. The boat can float as long as the water doesn't get in the boat. And one of the things that this psalm orients us to is that even in the moment of calamity, even in the moment of trouble, The psalmist here, David, but really us in our time of trouble, David doesn't let the calamity and the enemy and the water that wants to tear him down, get him down and drown him out. Instead, David rises to the Lord, who rises to his need and brings about his salvation. Let me pray for you today. Lord, I pray that by your grace and your power, you will wake us up and you will cause us in the morning in Psalm 3 and in the evening in Psalm 4 to be risen up to your good purpose. May you be the one who brings us the deliverance from calamity when we need it, and may we attest and proclaim you are our salvation. And for these things we give you praise. Have a great week.
Someone who cares for